right, this is the final step of your Create a Continent project. So hopefully you feel like you are pretty finished up with things at this point, and you're just kind of trying to wrap it up and do the last final touches on things. So let me just kind of overview what you should have, and you can kind of check yours off and make sure you have it. I have two maps. I have a political and a physical map. Both of them have a title. Your title should include the word political or physical map. So mine is called Thoria. So Thoria political map, Thoria physical map. Okay? Make sure that you have that part in your title, or you do not have a complete title there. Alright, both my maps have a compass, and both my maps have a key. The physical map key involves color. The political map key shows what a city and a capital look like. Okay? Moving on to my maps. When I look at my political map, okay, I can show you right here on the rubric what you're being graded for. Okay? So, biggest thing that you're being graded for, let me grab a highlighter that's nice and easy to see. I'm going to zoom in to this 5-6 level. Okay, so we're looking right here. Shows good understanding of the lettering styles and symbols used on a political map. Okay, that's like the biggest thing I'm looking at. That's why I listed it first, because I just checked that first. Also, you need to make sure that you have a title, key, and compass. Okay, and then a good understanding of how color is used for land and water. This is a big one because if you don't color your oceans, I don't know if you know how that's used, how water is used. Okay, so, and how color is used to show water. So I'm hoping that you have that, your oceans, your rivers, your lakes, all of those. And that's kind of another piece of the finishing touches, is all my rivers need to be on here and labeled. Okay, I did not label this reservoir yet, and I should have. I did label it over here, so that's a mistake that I just made, but I caught it as I'm going through here. So I'm going to label this Captain's Reservoir, as I did on the other one. It's in Captain America, so I thought that made sense. Captain's Reservoir. Okay, so that was a mistake that I just caught, and I just fixed here. Okay, so that's kind of one thing I did today, is I added in my rivers from my other map here. Now you can see my lineup pretty well. I actually just stuck them together and held them up to the light and looked at them, and I could see through pretty much. And then I used my pencil while they were upside down to just lightly draw them onto my piece here. And just a second. So I just lightly drew them on there while they were upside down, and then I came back and I went over them a little darker, so they kind of matched on the maps. Again, my rivers should be labeled, reservoirs should be labeled, and all those kinds of things as well. Okay? So I put all those rivers on here and I labeled them all. Okay? And same thing with my reservoir, and put that on both of my maps as well. Okay? So make sure you do that with any of your lakes or reservoirs. Those should be shown and labeled on both maps. Okay, go through, make sure you have title, compass, key on both maps. And then, like I was talking about before I got distracted, your lettering styles. This is the biggest thing people lose points on. This right here. Country names in all capital letters. Not just written big, but all capitals. I also wrote them bigger than these, but all capitals. Okay, if that's a lowercase a, I'm losing points. So all capital letters for your country names. These ones should start with a capital. Even if you think you did this, go through and check again. Okay? Because so many people think they did this, and they think they started each one with a capital, and I go through and I look at it and I say, nope, that one doesn't have a capital. And every time you get one, you kind of like lose points and go down a little bit. So please make sure that you are checking that each city and each capital starts with a capital. Okay, and then go through and make sure that you have all capital letters for your country names. Okay, very, very important. That's the big thing. The difference here between a 5-6 and a 7-8 is kind of, I mean, this shows detailed understanding of how lettering styles and symbols are used. And this says shows good understanding. This would be like if you had a pretty good sense, maybe you mess up once or twice or something. Okay, then you might fall into this 5-6 area. If everything's perfect and looking good, you have all these things accurate, you understand how color's used for both, okay, everything's different color, right? If it just looks good and everything's perfect on there, you're going to get a 7-8. The political map is the easy one to get a 7-8 on because it has a very little difference between the 5-6 and the 7-8 level as long as you did everything right, okay? So check those things. Those are the big pieces that people miss. Moving on. Here is my physical map rubric, okay? So when I look at the physical map rubric, the things that we're looking for, okay, 8 to 11 landforms accurately depicted and labeled. Okay, that means that they are accurately shown on there, that they look correct, they are drawn correctly, and they are labeled. If they are not labeled, you cannot get points for them. I don't care how many mountains you have. If you don't label them, you don't get any points for your mountains. I'll show you on mine what that looks like. And make sure that 3 to 4 are from that advanced section on your pink paper. Your pink paper shows basic and advanced, and you need to have 3 to 4 from the advanced section in order to get a 5-6. Okay, so I just kind of check off, and I check how many you have, and then I check if you have 3 or 4 from there. If you have more than 3 to 4 to there, and more than 12 landforms, then you can get up to the 7-8. Okay, that's really the big difference here. This says mostly accurate key, title, and compass versus accurate title, key, and compass. Okay, so those things are pretty similar. Again, if you have 1 or 2 mistakes, you might be down here. If it looks perfect, you're going to be in that 7-8 area. And then shows detailed understanding of how color is used to show elevation. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on my map as well. So, color used to show elevation, title, key, and compass, and good understanding of how color shows elevation, title, key, and compass. Okay. So, those are the big things I'm looking for. So, first I'm going to check, yep, I have my title, my compass, and my key. Those things are done. Those are the simple ones. Then I'm going to go through, and I'm going to look at how many different landforms do I have. So, if I have 2 bays, I'm only going to get a point for 1 bay, because it's still just 1 landform. Okay? So, I have a gulf. I have a delta. I have a bay. I have an isthmus. I have a peninsula. I have a fjord. I have a strait. I have an archipelago. I'm already at 8, and that's just on the outside. Now when I go in, I have a basin. I have a plateau. I'm going to show you this in just a second. I have a canyon. That's 11. I have a mountain range. That's 12. I have a peak. That's 13. And I have a reservoir. That's 14. Okay? I believe... Oh, and I have plains. That's 15. The only one I don't have is valley. Okay? I could have made this low space between these 2 mountains valley, but I decided to make it a canyon because it made sense for it to be a canyon if it's on a plateau, having a canyon, and having a river running through it. So I think that all made sense to make that way. Everything is labeled right where it is. This delta is showing me the delta. Okay, remember those rivers splitting up into many rivers at the end is the delta. The mountains are labeled on the mountains, peak on the peak, reservoir right next to it. That's clearly obvious that that's what I'm labeling. Okay, I first labeled my plateau over here, and I really recommend you using pencil and make sure you write it, and then go over it with black. I didn't do that, and then I messed up, and now mine looks a little worse, and it's not going to get up to that 8 level. This might be the difference between my 7 and 8, because I have something that doesn't look great on it, right? The 7 and 8 is kind of hard to distinguish because there's not a difference on the rubric between 7 and 8. So it's kind of just whether it looks perfect or if I didn't look perfect. And that might be my big mistake there that kind of cost me going down to a 7 instead of an 8. Okay? But my plateau, I didn't want to label it right here because even though this is the plateau because it's a little higher land, I didn't want to label it right here because it was going to go over the canyon area and it's just going to be a mess. So I did draw a little arrow. I don't want to see a bunch of little arrows on yours. Okay, I literally have 1 arrow. This is a peak symbol, that's not an arrow. So I don't have like, oh, here are the plains, oh, that's where the bay is, oh, that's where the delta. I don't want a bunch of arrows because you wouldn't see that on a map. I just made 1, and if I was making a map, I probably would have just put it over here. If I was making a real, actual, legit map, I probably would have put it over here, but I could have made it smaller and made the canyon and moved it and all that kind of stuff to really rearrange it how I wanted to. But because I'm doing it on here with pencil, it was hard to make all those arrangements, and I just put a little arrow. So if you have 1 or 2 little arrows, that's not going to cost you anything. Just make them nice and neat. Don't like scribble it on there. Okay. I just used my same black pencil, and maybe if I want to make it a little darker, it probably cleans it up a little bit, makes it a little nicer. Okay, and I just want this to look nice and neat, make it look like something you and I should be proud of. Okay, that's the big thing with that. So, otherwise things should be labeled on where exactly they are. So here's my basin labeled on the basin, here's my gulf labeled in the gulf, this is a bay, this is a delta. Now, if you had your delta labeled like out here or over here, I might not have known where it was. So really put the labels next to the things. Okay, really, really, really close to where they go so that I know that you know what they are. Okay, the fjords, like I put it next to the fjords. I didn't write it inside of the fjords because then you wouldn't have been able to see them, or on top of them. Just right next to it is fine. But I don't want it like, here are my fjords, and then have a giant arrow leading down there. That would be silly. Okay, so I'm only counting the ones that are labeled. I have 15 landforms. I would be up in that 7-8 category. Okay, however, this key, I only used 3 colors, so I cannot get a 7-8. Okay, in order to get a 7-8, I talked about in my last video that you needed 5 different elevations. Okay, so if you choose to use 3, you're only going to get a 5-6. Okay, so I can only get a 5-6 because of that, because of my key, even though I showed that I know the landforms well. I didn't show that I know the elevation map well. Okay, so if I wanted to change that, I could probably add in an orange section nicely in the middle here and add in a different color of green, or I could add to the bottom, and I could add some more colors in here. You could probably change that later and add in some of these colors as long as they make sense to blend or whatever. I think it would be a little more difficult, but I do think it's doable. So kind of think about that. If you're set with yours, then that's fine. But this shows high, medium, and low. And remember, as I talked about several times, you really want to make sure that your high is not touching your low. I don't have anywhere where red touches green. Red always touches yellow. That just doesn't happen much in the world where it skips a section here. Okay, or red touching water, touching kind of the bottom. I wouldn't see that. Again, my red is always touching yellow, because that's how a mountain is formed. It's a peak, but it goes up slowly or even quickly, but still would go up, not like a flat cliff. You just don't see 10,000-foot cliffs really anywhere. I mean, not many places in the world. Okay, yes, there are some places, and those are labeled accurately, I'm sure, but in general, even a 1,000-foot cliff would still go down like this. Okay, so these generally are jumping 5,000 to 10,000 feet each time if you look in the textbook. And so you don't want to jump and skip one. It just doesn't make as much sense. Okay? So think about that. Make sure that you're doing that on your map. If not, try to go back and see what you can fix or add in or change. Okay? And yeah, that's what you're getting graded on here. So title, compass, key, and your colors, and labeled landforms. Remember, without them being labeled, I can't grade them. That's really it for your wrap-up. Make sure that you have all the same things on the maps that you need to. You can also go through your pink sheet. I'm going to grab a pink sheet real quick. You can also go through your pink sheet and use it as a checklist. I really encourage you to do this, okay? I mean, it just says, like on here, give the map a title. Check. Does my political map have a title? Oh, yep, it does. Great. Check. Does it have a compass? Check. Does it have a key? And it tells you what should be in the key. Check. Does it have at least 3 countries? Each one has a name using the correct lettering style? Check. Does mine have the capitals? Like, I'm going to go through and actually look at this and just make sure that I have all these things and just follow little bullet points. Same thing with the physical map. Use that as a little checklist and just get it done. Okay? When you are all done, all these things are going to go into your folder, and your folder is going to go to me. I'll tell you where to turn that in. That'll be obvious in the classroom. But, yeah, I think that's it. So, thank you guys so much, and good luck. You're doing awesome.